according to the land prices now that is being sold, I think we should get something far much more than 47 cents an acre.
How do you feel about that, Dorothy?
I don't feel 47 cents an acre is fair.
57 cents, 45, whatever it is. If I was going to buy a piece of property from you, would you tell it to me for 47 cents an acre? Huh? Huh? Well, how the hell are you going to be able to buy me? Huh? Tell me.
It's like worrying about whether you got the right amount from the estate of your great-great-aunt, you know, that your life's got to be richer and fuller than worrying about that.
I don't need it. Why not? Why else? I mean, that's
I'm not rich, man. You know, like, I've been hearing about this thing ever since I was little, and so is that guy. I don't mean that. This guy will probably hear the same bullshit. What they're going to give us, $400 or $500 you can earn that in 1 month. You know, that ain't nothing.
No, of course, it's not a just settlement, and nobody ever, at least that I know of, has ever pretended that it was a just settlement.
Any day now, Pearl Hersey will receive a check for $600. The U.S. government mailed out 70,000 such checks to California Indians a few days ago. The money is compensation for land taken from the Indians' ancestors in 1853. Pearl and the other members of the Pitt River tribe intend to refuse the checks. They say they never agreed to accept 47 cents an acre for their land. They charge that government officials and their own lawyers deceived them when the settlement was negotiated 9 years ago. They say the amount is too little to repay them for outrages of the past or to provide any solution to present problems. The Pitt River protest reflects the feelings of many California Indians.
After all, they got a lot of, they made a lot of money, you know, off of this Indian land. And that 40 cents an acre that they wanted to give us is not enough.
He's
When white trappers first entered the area in 1832, this land in northeastern California was inhabited by 3,000 Indians. In 1848, when Buckskin Jack and Old Wool were children, Mexico ceded California to the United States through the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. The United States government agreed in that treaty not to force California Indians from their homes. In 1851, Congress passed the Private Land Claims Act. It required all persons in California to register claims to land they occupied. Land not claimed within 2 years was open to homesteading. The Indians did not speak English, and they did not know about the white man's laws. They lost their land without even knowing they had lost it. The U.S. cavalry rounded up many Pitt River Indians and marched them some 200 miles to a reservation. The Indians were later to describe the ordeal to their grandchildren.
The soldiers were on horses, driving them just like cattle, and how they would whip them and kick them, and some of the women were pregnant, and the soldiers would rape them.
I don't know just what year it was, but anyway, those white people were treating them mean. He said he fed the Indians on a long table, and then when he called them all together, as many as they could bribe them with the food, then they start shooting them, kill all them Indians that came there to eat.
By 1880, 85% of the Indian people were dead. A handful of them had managed to evade the roundup and remain on the old lands. A few more had slipped away from the reservation and made their way home.
But the white man killed my people all, and my ancestors, my kids, little girls and boys. Slam them in a tree, I'd kill them, you know. I killed one pale-faced son of a bitch. I do time for it. I done 12 years and 5 months in Folsom Penitentiary.
The ancestral homeland of the Pitt River Indians extended over 3.5 million acres. From Goose Lake on the Oregon border west to Mount Shasta, and south to Mount Lassen. Today, the 580 Indians on the Pitt River tribal roll are virtually landless. Whites own and occupy the more valuable sections of the land. 7 large power plants on the Pitt River send electricity to all parts of Northern California. Most Indian homes still have no electricity or indoor plumbing. The Indians still feel the land belongs to them, and many resent the way the land is now used.
I think what these people are doing here is right, because we still own this land. Like that sign back there doesn't mean nothing to me because they don't own this, you know. They're not the legal owners of this, it's us. And we can come in here, and I think what we should do is come in here and stop these people from doing this act. They're just destroying everything, and by cutting these trees, when they take them to the mill, they make all that smoke and stuff that just destroys everything.
10 large corporations have holdings in the area. Few of them hire Indians. 95% of the Indians are unemployed during the winter months.
Then they say, well, they won't work if they did have a job, but they don't really give us a chance. I mean, sure, maybe there's a few of us won't work, but there's a lot of others that want to work, that would like to have a job and earn a decent living, you might say, you know, in the white man's world.
Nearly 2/3 of this land today belongs to the federal government. It is national forest and parkland, popular with campers, hunters, and fishermen. Many Indians live on land allotted to them by the government. It is hard to improve living conditions on this land. It is rocky and barren and unproductive.
Tell you what the white man did to my people. They pushed them over in a goddamn place where there ain't no water, right? And the Indian ain't got no money like the white man. Don't got no machinery. And the white man put us out here where there's nothing out there. You can see for your own self. That's what the white man did to poor Indian. And then they charge him, well, look at the kind of house we live in. We got no water, no toilet facility.
Some Indians live on rancherias, small reservations that are owned by the government. They don't belong to the Indians. Tribal Councilman Raymond Legou moved onto vacated rancheria land after his logging business went bankrupt 10 years ago. Like most Pitt River Indians, he does not trust the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Legou did not go through the required Bureau procedure for moving onto land. A Bureau official has told him to get off the land. Legou is still there.
I told the Bureau of Indian Affairs, if there's anybody trespassing here, it's you, because this is Indian land, I'm Indian. You show me any kind of law that says that I'm trespassing, and I could probably find you lots of laws that says you're trespassing. And so we had a kind of a understanding there. I told him to never come through their gate and on this place unless I asked him to come from now on, that I didn't want anything to do with the kind of lying propaganda that he was been feeding me all this time.
I think my feeling on this, on the Pitt River, is that we do have kind of a relationship with them, but Pitt Rivers do have a strong feeling against the Bureau of Indian Affairs as a bureau. They don't want the Bureau to go up into their area.
21 to Raymond Legou, 20.
The Bureau of Indian Affairs does not recognize the Pitt River Tribal Council because the tribe will not conform to the Bureau standards for organization. Without Bureau recognition, though, the Tribal Council does not have access to $20,000 in tribal funds, nor does it have access to the only land allotted to the tribe that has any value, the 9,000-acre XL Ranch near Alturas. The XL Ranch was purchased by the government in 1938 for 31 Pit River families. Land for the remaining Pit River Indians was to be acquired later, but no purchases were ever made. The Forrest family controls most of the XL's resources. Aaron Forrest, the Indian ranch manager, is currently attempting, with Bureau of Indian Affairs backing, to clear title to the ranch for himself and 10 families now assigned to it. 5 of those assignments belong to Forrest's immediate family, although only Aaron Forrest lives on the ranch. 4 of the families of the XL claim Aaron Forrest works only for his own interests and that he has tried to run them off.
He's not all this land to none whites. None Indians. And when he does that, well, the money's going to associate, then I don't get I have no place to pasture my cattle.
Well, he tried to hurt us doing, in the ways like trying to throw this guy in for stealing horse. He said he knows better than that.
I think that it's a matter of personal ambition. Some people are ambitious, and some people are satisfied with being what they are. I've kind of felt it was a challenge to try to be as good as somebody else, and find out that you can be if you have the perseverance.
Long before the XL Ranch was purchased, the Pit River tribal leaders had petitioned the government for the return of a portion of their land. In 1927 and 1931, delegations traveled to Washington with a hand-drawn map of their claim. Their pleas fell on deaf ears. In 1946, the Indian Claims Commission was created. Again, the Tribal Council submitted the Pit River claim. In 1959, the Claims Commission conceded that 3.5 million acres had been illegally taken from them. The next step was for the Court of Claims to decide a satisfactory settlement. In 1963, Ramsey Clark was Assistant Attorney General. He met with the Pit River attorney and attorneys for other California Indian tribes with pending claims. Clark told the attorneys the government wanted to settle all the claims out of court. He offered a lump sum of $29.1 million. This was allegedly the value of the land at the time it was taken.
The date of valuation was 1853. So in a real sense, you see, it was fictive. That is, it wasn't real, because there was, in the classical sense, there was no buyer or seller or market for 63 million acres of land. And the fact is that there were millions of acres of land at that time which no one would have bought. Who would have bought Death Valley? Who would have bought Mount Whitney?
The $29 million offer amounts to 47 cents an acre. In 1820, federal law had established the minimum sale price of homesteading land at $1.25 an acre. Today, an acre of irrigated farmland in the Pit River area sells for $650 to $1,000. The Indian groups voted to accept or reject the settlement. The Pit River Indians rejected the settlement at a meeting at Modoc High School in Alturas. Gladys O'Neill remembers the reaction of the Pit River attorney, Lewis Phelps.
He more or less just kind of reached down the side of his chair or desk, I can't recall just exactly what it was, and he picked up his briefcase and he just walked out. And I thought, well, that's a funny way for our attorney to act, because it seemed as though that instead of being friendly, well, then he just left the room in such a hostile manner.
Lewis Phelps had already spent 8 years on the case, and unless the Indians approved the settlement, the case might have dragged on several more years. Phelps wrote to the Indian Claims Commission and requested a mail ballot for Pit River Indians who had not voted. He said the Alturas vote was too low to be representative.
Because we were already told that there would be no absentee ballot involved in this deciding factor about this $29 million. So we just took it for granted that it wouldn't be. And then when the pitcher voted no on it, well, then we thought we had it made. And then shortly afterwards is when we were notified that absentee ballots were being sent out to all other Pitcher Indians.
When the mail ballots were added to the votes cast at Alturas, there was a 24-vote margin in favor of accepting the settlement. Arthur Watkins, former U.S. Senator from Utah, was the commissioner who authorized the mail ballot. Watkins feels use of the mail ballot was justified.
Send out absentee ballot, it meant they wanted more votes, more Indians to vote on it.
The Indians say the ballots were sent to persons who had no interest in the settlement.
The Bureau of Indian Affairs was the one who sent out. They used their Pitt River roll in order to send out the absentee, and a lot of these absentee were sent to Pitt Rivers who were also out from the state.
Some kind of settlement.
Even Aaron Forrest says the mail ballot did not represent the feelings of the tribe.
I think the tragedy of the mail ballot vote was that a lot of Indians that really didn't know how to read and write got a mail ballot. And so the Indians, and I say this, not condemning them for what they are, but many of our Pitt River Indians by this time were, one 16th Indian, and something else white, and one 164th, and they're really not Indian at all, except they qualified under the Claims Act as Indians. And they could care less about getting a square deal from the government. They just wanted money as quickly as possible, and they're the ones who really carried the vote, because the old Indians didn't even know what those ballots were for.
The tribal council told Phelps to have the mail ballot declared invalid. Phelps conferred with Commissioner Watkins, and Watkins set aside 1 day to hear Pitt River objections at Eureka, 200 miles out of Pitt River territory. The tribal council then sent Phelps a letter telling him he was fired.
He didn't encourage us as an attorney to our client. He more or less kind of discouraged us. There was no encouragement whatsoever.
Well, that's when we decided we should look around for somebody else to help us. And then we finally got in touch with Mr. Belli.
The other lawyers...
Attorney Melvin Belli appeared with the Indians at Eureka. Watkins refused to recognize him, saying the Indians already had an attorney approved by the BIA, Louis Phelps.
This lawyer is going to represent the Indians. The Indians said, we don't want him. We want Belli. They said, you can't have Belli. You'll take the one that we approve. So the lawyer that the Bureau of Indian Affairs had selected for the Indians sat with the United States Attorney opposing all of the desires of the Indians.
125 Indians attended the Eureka meeting. 8 were allowed to speak. All denounced the voting procedure, the settlement, or the conduct of Mr. Phelps. A BIA official testified that there was nothing irregular about the voting procedures. A judge who had been Phelps' associate in the case testified that most of the Indians wanted to accept the settlement. The commissioners ruled that the objectors did not represent the majority of the Indians. They said the vote would stand.
Why, it's as though these people were inmates of an asylum or were underage. They're treated as though they haven't their capacity to appreciate what they want.
Commissioner Watkins, now 86, does not remember Phelps or Belli or why he refused to recognize the tribal chairman as spokesman for the tribe.
I don't even remember that he spoke.
The Indians had 90 days to appeal the decision. They no longer considered Phelps their lawyer, and the BIA refused to recognize Belli. Without a lawyer, there was no way to appeal. Today, it would take an act of Congress for California Indians to receive a larger settlement. Senator John Tunney says the Indians will have to show that they were defrauded of their rights.
Well, I think that what the Indians are going to have to show is that the advice that they got from their attorneys was bad, because, as I recall, they accepted the settlement on the advice of the attorneys that it was all that they were going to get. Now, if they could show that the attorneys had given them extremely bad advice to the point, in a sense, that they were defrauded of their rights, then I think that there's a chance to give them an additional compensation.
There was no question about the bona fides of my being wanted, but there was a question as to the bona fides of the lawyer that they got, and who got, incidentally, for appearing for them and opposing their desires, $300,000 of their money.
Louis Phelps is a partner in the San Francisco law firm of Dunn, Phelps, and Mills. He has refused all requests for an interview about his role in the settlement. Leonard Hill, area director of the BIA at that time, also refused to be filmed. He said the tribal council had no authority to hire and fire attorneys for the tribe. But Louis Phelps had been hired by the tribal council.
Well, I think it's hard to do justice to Indians who died 7 generations ago, or 6 generations ago, or 5 generations ago. I really don't think that I don't think you can compensate for wrongs that happened hundreds of years ago. I mean, suppose your people came from Ireland and they were run out during the potato famine. Can Ireland do justice to them by giving you some potatoes or giving you some money or something? It doesn't really work that way.
But they had, the leaders clamored to get a law of this kind, and they got the law, and we went ahead to do the very best we could. They didn't, Congress didn't lay down the rules that we had to follow either. We had to use good horse sense.
I came in 1961. I felt that our burden was to settle those cases as generously and as quickly as we could, because generations of Indians had worried about old wrongs, and they kept looking back, and they needed to look forward in their lives. So I set about trying to settle the cases as quickly and as generously as we could.
You had to get it done. They spent all this time and money. Now what were we going to do? We'd let them tie the thing up for another 2 or 3 years or another 10 years, arguing back and forth over the appeals and whatnot as to who was right among the two Indian groups. Well, we just decided, we knew those things would happen, had happened in other cases. We just simply said, arbitrarily, all right, if you don't like this, you know what you can do about it.
And we settled more in the 3 years that I was there than had been settled in the previous 15 years of the Act combined. In fact, many times more. And the Indians of California's settlement was the largest, and I think by the standards of the law, which I don't think are real, I don't think they're meaningful, I don't think they apply to the human lives of the people, I think it was a generous settlement.
I couldn't even buy bread with that 47 cents an acre. That's what I say right now.
Where if we accepted the $400, and this is all we gained from it after our leaders and our ancestors have been fighting the federal government for 100 years or more, trying to get a decent settlement. If we were to turn around and sell out for this amount of money, then I think it's wrong.
The Pitt River Indians have no money and no political power. Most are adamant that they will not accept the government checks. Tribal leaders tried to organize Indians throughout the state to follow their example.
The only thing that we're trying to do for you people, we've asked to have this meeting called for the Indian people, for the people that still want to fight, that don't want to accept 47 cents an acre for the state of California.
California Indians who oppose the settlement recently announced that they have filed a $5 billion suit against the government.
California Indians, we want to make the public aware of what's happened to California Indians. And maybe if there is enough political pressure and enough public pressure put on Congress, we can receive a more fair settlement.
The lawsuit was filed on behalf of all California Indians by George Foreman of the California Rural Indian Land Project. Foreman says the government defrauded the Indians.
The Secretary of the Interior failed to adequately supervise the fulfillment of the attorney contracts which he had approved. The Commission itself failed to investigate the claims and inform the Indian people of the claims. The Commission itself knew that the settlement was not a just one. It knew that the settlement had not been fairly approved, yet it approved the settlement. Contrary to the assertion of the Department of Justice at the time, in 1964, the Indian Claims Commission could have and should have awarded damages to the Indians of California, not only for the land, which was worth at the time much more than 47 cents an acre, but also for things like the gold in the land, timber, and most important to the Indians of California, the genocide that was committed against perhaps 100,000 or more Indian people who resided in California between 1853 and the 1880s.
The Pitt River Indians say money is secondary. They want their land back.
No, it's not the money, it's just that they should give us land. You know, more land to live on, be productive on, or just to raise, you know, raise your own garden, raise your kids, and a place to be buried, if anything, a place to call home.